Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to our history podcast. In today's episode, we will discuss the emergence of the Third World with our special guest, Božidara Stoyanova.
Hello, Sofia.
So first tell me, how was the Third World born?
This question can't be answered directly because that was a long and complicated process that starts after the end of the First World War, when the formed elites within the colonized territories controlled them. Later on, this process was complicated by hatred of colonialism, the Cold War, and most importantly, two significant organizations, the Arab League and the United Nations.
As is known, decolonization in Asia and Africa took place in two stages, between the years 1945 and 1955 and from 1956 to 1980, resulting in the emergence of 90 new countries. Is that right?
It is, indeed. Now, let's tell our listeners about the first state that achieved independence, shall we?
Of course. That was the pearl of the British crown, India. Mahatma Gandhi was the first person who started fighting for freedom, and after 1945, Britain was ready to evacuate the country. Unfortunately, the Muslims disagreed and wanted a separate state. In the end, their wish was fulfilled, and in 1947, two states were proclaimed independent, India and also Pakistan, inhabited by the Muslims.
The year for Indonesia was 1949 because the country received the Netherlands recognition and was proclaimed independent.
That's right. Now let's move on to the year 1954.
Certainly. Maybe the milestone in that year is the signing of the Peace Treaty of Geneva on the 20th of July, which resulted in the creation of North Vietnam, South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Now that we're familiar with the road to liberation in Asia, let's observe this process in the Middle East and Africa.
Britain and France were controlling the former Ottoman Empire territories through a mandate system with the desire to postpone their withdrawal. But after 1945, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and the Italian colony of Libya quickly gained independence. Unfortunately, the case with Palestine was a lot more tangled.
Let me explain why. With the Balfour Declaration from 1917, Britain claimed the creation of a Jewish state, but Israel was born in 1948 and disputed by the Arab Islamic states. This conflict continues down to today.
That's interesting. Now let's move on to the year 1956. At that time, Morocco and Tunisia were finally freed from the rule of France, and a year later, in 1957, Ghana was proclaimed the first free state south of the Sahara.
Our next point is the non-aligned movement. It was created at a conference in Bandar, Indonesia in 1955 and intended to advance the interests of developing countries. And although it united half of the world's population, it did not manage to replace the big two.
And last but not least, we will discuss the period between 1965 and 1975. At that time, Ho Chi Minh fought the Vietnam War to unite the country with the support of China and the USSR. The war ended with the defeat of South Vietnam and humiliation for the United States. Now,
Oh no!
We will be late for history class! Goodbye, dear listeners!